Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Friday, February 18th meeting of the Baltimore County Delegation. Delegate Pat Young, Chair. Delegate Ben Brooks, Vice Chair. We have our agenda posted. We're going to go a little out of order while we wait for speakers to finish up with other delegations. So we're going to go right into bill hearings, and we'll start with HB 476, Baltimore County Board of Education member appointments and terms of election of officers. Sponsor Delegate Eversole. Delegate Eversole, when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As you all know, we're very intimately aware of how our Board of Ed is elected and selected. 7 members elected by councilmanic districts and 4 appointed by the governor from a list provided by.
Down the street to go home, and this group
Somebody
of
needs to
juveniles
mute.
in the middle of the street on Martin Road.
Go ahead, Delegate.
Thank you. And 4 members appointed by the governor from a list slightly double the size of the number of positions provided by a commission made up of many representatives from several groups. It's a great idea and it should work out fine. However, coming to this election year, myself and another delegate, I have to thank Delegate Forbes for her help on unwinding this a little bit. We discovered that the Maryland Constitution does not allow the governor to make appointments in a year where they have either not participated in or not won their primary after the primary. This means that the 4 members that might be appointed by the governor would not be constitutionally allowed to be appointed. And so the commission, and I think Delegate Forbes will back me on this, is not going to get its work done, has never been scheduled to get its work done before the primary. It was never the plan. And so this bill doesn't say something simple. It says what we're going to do is we're going to have to wait to appoint those 4 members until after the new governor is sworn in. And we put a deadline on it before February 1st. Now, it's not specifically in the bill, and we can put it in if people think we should, that the other 7 members should also wait to be sworn in. I'm a little concerned because if this other 7 members are sworn in early December, there'll be a time period where we'll have either 4 other members who are still on board for another month and a half, and we'll have a kind of mixed board of new people and people hanging around. This does say they cannot elect their chair and vice chair until after all 11 members. I think we might even put something in the bill to say that the other 7 should also wait to be sworn in. There are budgetary concerns. They do their budget and start working really concentratedly on the budget in early February. We have talked about the fact that once they kind of knew who they were, they could sort of talk offline until they're sworn in. Just constitutionally, they may not be sworn in. So we didn't recognize this problem until too late. There was a better fix that we could have thought of if we'd have noticed it earlier. And actually, it has presented itself to us that this problem could generally be resolved in the future rather than pushing the date back, because it makes more sense to have Board of Ed members sworn in early December about the same time all other county offices or people are sworn into county offices. And so the suggestion has been made that the appointed members be appointed in presidential election years rather than gubernatorial election years. That would be to change right now. This group, the next group to be sworn in, according to this bill in January of 2023, would only serve 2 years until the next appointment process. And then they would serve 4 years. So they would be staggered. The 7 members that were elected in the gubernatorial year would be sworn in December of that year. And the 4 members that's an amendment I have presented also that is there to take this year. We can't change that this year. We're in a bit of a bind here and we need to move this back. And then the amendment says that we possibly should change that process to have them staggered. I've gotten a lot of support for the idea of staggering them, both because it seems like a good idea. We had a lengthy conversation about the experience of the board members concerning budget and other items, and having some existing members when you have new members come on is probably not a bad idea. I've got support from a couple of folks on this, including county government and TABCO. I'm going to stop there because I think there might be some questions about unwinding this, and I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Sure. And Delegate, do you have a panel at all, or do we just have some folks signed up in support?
No, we have a letter of support from county government, and we have the letter from the Attorney General's office stating that, in fact, we cannot, the governor, in this case, Governor Hogan, but a governor who is, if you don't mind the term, lame duck, cannot swear people into any, not just the Board of Ed, but into any office during the, one of the reasons that in the legislature, we don't do too many commissions and work groups because the governor has to swear people in and oftentimes they cannot.
Got it. Then I see we have a number of questions. So we'll go ahead and start with questions. We do have 2 people signed up in support.
Oh,
So
excellent.
why don't I go ahead and go to the support folks, and I'll open it up for questions. So, and then we don't have anybody in opposition that's signed up or support with amendments. So I believe Ms. Cheryl Pasteur and board member of Baltimore County Board of Ed, are you in the room?
I'm in the room. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am. And if I might take some license, Ms. Pasteur also just so happens to be my line, if you can mute yourself. Also happens to be my vice principal for middle school.
Thank you for sharing that moment.
When you're ready, you have 2 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Young and Vice Chair Brooks and members of the Baltimore County delegation. I am Cheryl Pasteur, former Baltimore County Public Schools Board Vice Chair, and I am speaking for myself concerning this matter. I am in support of House Bill 476 as it does address the unintended consequence of the current bill related to the Baltimore County Hybrid Board. Currently, all members elected and appointed have the same term dates, possibly upsetting the continuity and the stability of the board's work and level of experience. This fix will stagger the term of the board members elected and appointed while altering the process for the election of officers, as well as addressing how and by whom the appointees are selected. House Bill 476 has the potential to strengthen the work of the board. Thank you for this time.
Thank you, ma'am. And we have Ms. Mole Joss, if you're in the room. Barb's informing me she is not in the room, so we'll go ahead and go to questions. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate Ebersol, for working on this issue. That I wasn't aware of this issue, and this is, obviously a big problem, and I appreciate your work on this. So this is not in any way criticism. I'm just trying to understand the bill a little better and the situation really a little better, because obviously we need to fix this. But so are there open seats now? Is that the and when do those?
So the term of a board member ends when the new board member is sworn in. And so they're still in place. We're just, the electorate and the appointment board and then the governor are going to choose the other 4. And then they were scheduled to be sworn in the first week in December.
Okay, so the terms of the existing board members would then be extended. So there wouldn't be a gap where there would be no.
Right. I got to looking at the bill a day ago, and it actually, my intent was to have all 11 members be sworn in in the same time period in the latter half of January. It doesn't actually say that. I may offer that as an amendment. I think that this time we should have, as we expected, we should have the whole group switch at once rather than have a kind of weird where we have 7 new people and 4 old people. It might cause some unnecessary politics or at least some confusion. So I may add that in, but I'd certainly listen to the advice of the subcommittee and actually delegation members if they want to weigh in that they think we should go ahead, put the other 7 in December and put the other 4 and wait until January for the other 4. Then going forward, like I said, if we take the other amendment, that will remedy this problem. The only thing we'd have to make clear to the new appointees is that their appointment this time would only be for 2 years if we take that amendment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Delegate Cordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly, Delegate Ebersol, thank you for working on this. Would it be appropriate to to add language to the amendment that would say that during this, I guess, period between, say, December and February 1st, that there could be no votes taken, so that reduces the amount of political posturing that could happen?
It's an interesting thought. I don't know. I'd have to procedurally ask the board member, and I've had some extensive conversations with some of them to find out if holding them from making any votes during that time might actually hamstring them a bit.
Right, or budget, maybe
be
budgetary vote, maybe budgetary, could do some kind of language saying any budgetary or, major budgetary language or something.
So if you want to offer that amendment, but I would ask you to vet it first with a couple of board members and see what they think of the idea. I mean, everybody's kind of grappling with the concept that we have a little bit of a situation here, and there's a lot of things, there's a lot of moving parts. So if you want to consider that, it's not, then we could have the other 7 if we said they really couldn't vote. It would be almost as if they weren't really sworn in. If they couldn't do much, they could talk, but that'd be about it. So it's an interesting idea, and thank you for suggesting it. If you want to work on an amendment with me to see if the subcommittee finds it interesting and if the delegation does ultimately, I'd be happy to take a look.
Delegate Schleicher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have another suggestion that perhaps the subcommittee could entertain. Just so you know, in Harford County, our appointed members are sworn in July 1st. So that gives, the appointing person the opportunity to have enough time to really make a thoughtful decision, rather than just being rushed. And the other thing that we're entertaining, and I hope that we pass in Harford County, the Senate is passing it, would be to change the appointing person to the county executive. Right now, you can read the bill Delegate Ebersol has before us, and it says the appointing person is the governor. But I think the county executive, and we're saying with advice and consent of the council rather than the governor with advice and consent of the Senate. I think that makes sense. Who knows the county better than the county executive that's elected by people from Baltimore County? And I think we get much less politics because it's directly our folks. So I don't know whether you want me to have an amendment drafted, Delegate Ebersol, or whether you guys want to just entertain it in your work group, but I think there's a lot of merit to both of those ideas. Just letting it be July 1st, and then you have that continuity with the appointed members. You're not rushing them all in, and the elected members take office in December. The appointed officer, members take office in July. You're continuing continuity. Makes sense. Thank you.
I'm not sure which July you're talking about. In this example of this year, are you saying they'd be appointed in July of 2022, or would you say they would wait until July of 2023?
Yes. So
Which one?
The 2023. So the appointed members would be appointed by the, I would hope, county executive. That appointment would happen, in January, February, March, somewhere in there.
So 2020. But my question was simply 2023, right? You're saying later.
Yes, but I think also, Delegate Ebersol, changing it to the presidential year is a great idea, because you're staggering, so, perhaps that July wouldn't be necessary because the county executive or governor would be clearly, well situated by that time. So thank you.
So one of my concerns about your other suggestion, I think it's a good one. We've bandied that idea about. Obviously, the county executive, when I asked him about it, he said, "Yeah, it's a good idea." He didn't come to us, and he didn't make a play for it. But of course, he'd love to be able to do that because, as you say, he's probably well positioned. I don't think this bill is the vehicle for it, because this bill is really just correcting a constitutional problem we have. And if we get involved in that decision-making process, if there are people against that, the bill might die, and we might lose this moment to fix a problem that I don't think we can ignore. So I would suggest not amending that onto this bill. Not saying it's a bad idea, but a separate bill would be an excellent idea for us to discuss and think about.
So I don't see any further questions, and we have our first panelist, and sounds like you'll be working on with some of the members related to potential amendments to the subcommittee. So
thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. We have a budget brief or fiscal brief from the Department of Legislative Services. We've done annually, and happy to welcome Mr. Hiram Birch as well as Valerie Monroe. Welcome to the delegation.
Good morning. Valerie is going to share the presentation with you.
Okay.
Oh, excellent.
When you're ready, folks, go ahead.
Great. If you look at page 1, it kind of shows you that state aid to local governments is a very large portion of the state budget. It accounts for around 35% of general fund expenditures and around 26% of all state funds. And for comparative purposes, if you look at the bottom, you can see that state agencies account for around 41% of general fund expenditures and entitlements around 22%. So this kind of shows you that the state support for local governments is considerable, and it is around 1/3 of the entire state budget. If you turn to page 2, it kind of shows you that state aid will total around $9.2 billion in FY23. The majority of this funding, around 76%, goes to the public school system at $7.1 billion. County and municipal governments would get less than 10%, around $841 million. If we turn to page 3, it kind of breaks it down on a county by county basis. And you can see that Baltimore County will get around $1 billion in funding in FY23. Of this amount, around $950 million is direct aid, which will go to the county government and the public school system. Around $96 million is retirement payments that the state makes on behalf of the county government. Funding for Baltimore County will go up by 6.5%. This is a $63 million increase from the prior year. On a per capita basis, Baltimore County will get around $1,200 per resident, which is slightly below the statewide average of around $1,500. If we skip to page 9, it kind of shows you the proposed enhancements that are in the governor's budget for this year. The governor is proposing an additional $57.3 million in hold harmless grants under the compensatory aid program. This is to offset declines in the free and reduced price meal count. Baltimore County is scheduled to receive around $2.7 million. In addition, the governor is proposing an additional $68.1 million for full-day pre-kindergarten programs, and Baltimore County will get around $9.7 million. But you can see to the left that the governor has not funded $125.5 million in the Education Effort Index. Of that amount, around $99 million goes to Baltimore City, and around $26.5 million goes to Prince George's County. There is some disagreement between the administration and the General Assembly on whether this funding is mandated or whether or not it is discretionary. The General Assembly believes that the funding is mandated and it should have been included in the governor's budget. The Attorney General's office is looking into this and trying to settle the situation. We're now going to focus on the amount of funding that goes directly to the county government. If you turn to page 14, it provides you with some information on the police aid formula. And as you can see that Baltimore County receives around $13.1 million in funding under this program. The governor has proposed an additional $5.5 million in enhancements. And if you turn to page 16, it kind of shows you how the funds will be allocated. It's based on increasing a per capita grant by around $6 and also increasing the amount of funding for the municipal sworn officers. As you can see, Baltimore County will only receive funding under the population-based grant. Baltimore City will get a direct $8 million payment under the program. Page 17 shows you funding under the targeted crime grants initiatives. Baltimore City and Prince George's County receives direct funding under several programs. Baltimore County will be eligible to receive funding under the statewide initiatives. Page 19 shows you the allocation under the Fire and Rescue Aid Program. And here you can see that funding for Baltimore County is around $1.7 million. The funding is allocated by each county's share of property tax accounts compared to the statewide total. Page 20 provides you with information on state funding under the local health grants. And here, Baltimore County will receive around $6.7 million, which is around 9% of the statewide total. And finally, if you turn to page 24, it shows you the amount of funding that Baltimore County will receive under the Local Highway User Revenue Program. And here you can see Baltimore County would get around $9.6 million. You probably do notice right above that amount is the amount provided to Baltimore City at around $170 million. That's around 62% of the total allocation. So there's always questions asked is why does Baltimore City receive just a large portion of local highway user revenue? And historically, it is due to the fact that the state does not maintain any roads within Baltimore City, except for a small portion of Interstate 95. And the other 23 counties, the state MDOT is responsible for maintaining interstate highways, and also there are state funded high roads in all of the other 23 jurisdictions. So we'll turn the presentation over to Valerie, who is going to talk about state funding for public schools, and in particular, state funding for the Baltimore County public school system. Okay, Valerie?
Thank you, Hiram. Greetings to the delegation. On page 31, this shows the total level of state funding for public schools in fiscal 23. State aid to Baltimore County Public Schools will total $923.5 million in fiscal 23. Page 32 breaks the funding down by direct aid and teacher retirement payments. Baltimore County Public Schools will receive $836.4 million in direct aid, and this goes directly to the public school system, and $87 million for teachers' retirement payments, which goes directly to the state retirement agency. On a per pupil basis, direct aid for Baltimore County totals $7,809, which is the 11th highest amount in the state. This ranking is due to the fact that 75% of direct education aid is allocated based on local wealth. As we will show later in the presentation, Baltimore County has the 9th highest per pupil local wealth measure in the state. On page 33, this shows the percent increase in per pupil direct aid and per pupil total aid. For Baltimore County, per pupil direct education aid increases by 7.4% in fiscal 23 compared to the statewide average of 5.4%. And this is the 9th highest in the state. Total per pupil education aid increases by 5.6%, which is above the statewide average of 4.2%. On page 34, this shows the primary factors that drive the increase in education aid, and these are the student enrollment and local wealth. Full-time equivalent student enrollment in Baltimore County decreases by 0.6%, and this is the 12th highest decrease in the state. Local wealth per pupil increases by 1.4%, which is the 7th lowest in the state. The combination of the two factors results in Baltimore County realizing a significantly higher increase in education aid than the statewide average. In comparison, Frederick County, which has the highest student enrollment growth and the second lowest increase in local wealth, realizes the highest increase in education aid. Garrett County, which has the highest decrease in student enrollment and the 4th highest increase in local wealth, realizes the lowest growth in education aid. If you turn with me to page 35, you will see that this shows the level of state aid under the foundation program, which is the main education funding formula. Baltimore County will receive $491 million, or $4,584 on a per pupil basis, which is slightly higher, which is slightly above the statewide average. Page 36 shows the level of state aid under the Blueprint initiatives. Baltimore County will receive $40.8 million, including $12.2 million for concentration of poverty grants, $17.1 million for full-day pre-kindergarten, and $6.5 million for supplemental instruction. Page 37 shows the level of state aid for targeted student populations. Baltimore County will receive $240 million in funding in fiscal 23. Of this amount, $143.9 million is for compensatory aid, which is based on the free and reduced price meal count. $43.3 million is for English language learners, and $52.8 million is for special education. On page 38, this shows the factors driving funding for targeted education programs. Generally, a higher targeted student index and a lower wealth per pupil measure generates the greatest amount of funding per pupil. Baltimore County has the 10th highest targeted student index and the 9th lowest local wealth per pupil measure. This results in the 10th highest per pupil funding level at $2,241 compared to the statewide average of $2,495. On page 39, this shows how the targeted student index is calculated. It's generally a combination of the percent share of total student enrollment from the 3 targeted student populations. Since a student can be in more than one targeted group, a school system can have an index that exceeds 100%, as in the case of Baltimore City, which has an index of 116%. The next few pages, that's pages 40 through 45, shows how local wealth is calculated and how each local school system compares with the statewide average. If you turn with me to page 46, this shows the change in full-time equivalent student enrollment. The full-time equivalent student enrollment count decreases by 0.6% in Baltimore County compared to the statewide average of 0.7%. This results in 619 fewer students for the Baltimore County public school system. Currently, the county school system accounts for approximately 12.6% of students statewide. If we turn to page 47, this shows the number of students approved for the free and reduced price meals. The number of students approved for the free and reduced price meals decreases by 4.2% in Baltimore County compared to the statewide average decrease of 6.9%. Baltimore County currently has the 13th highest percentage of students approved for the free and reduced price meal at 39.5% of total student enrollment, which is close to the statewide average of 38.1%. On page 48, this shows the number of students identified as English language learners. Baltimore County has the 6th highest percentage of students identified as English language learners at 9.6% of total student enrollment. In fiscal 23, the number of English language learner students increases by 16.6%, resulting in 1,461 additional students requiring language services. On page 49, this shows the number of students receiving special education services. As you would observe, Baltimore County has a relatively higher share of students receiving special education services. In fiscal 23, the number of students receiving special education services accounts for 14.1% of total enrollment compared to the statewide average of 12.8%. On page 50, this shows public school enrollment as a share of total county population. Statewide, public school enrollment represents 13.7% of the total state population. In Baltimore County, public school enrollment represents 12.5% of the overall county population, and this is the 8th lowest in the state. Public school enrollment as a share of total county population ranges from 8.9% in Kent County to 16.8% in Howard County. And finally, page 51 shows the racial composition for each local school system. Baltimore County has a diverse local school system in which no one racial or ethnic group comprises a majority of students. African American students comprise the largest racial ethnic group with 40% of student enrollment, followed by white students at 35%. Hispanic or Latino and Asian students account for around 20% of student enrollment. I want to thank you again for listening, and I'll hand it back over to Hiram.
Okay. We're open for like any questions that you have, but I do want to indicate that we will be sending the delegation a summary of our speaking points at the end of the day. So you will have another, like a 4-page document that kind of summarizes all of our comments this morning. So are there any questions?
That's great, Mr. Birch, and good to know too, because I think there's some interesting points. One from the document too that folks might want to get into the weeds with you on, possibly offline too. Questions for the speakers? I see Delegate Shalega.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mr. Birch. You always do such a great job with this report, and I think it's one of the better ones that DLS produces. There is another chart that I have in my hand from last year, per pupil revenues for public schools. That's all funding. And I don't think it's in this. First of all, please send us the link to this report that you just gave us so we can access it. I looked for it and I didn't see it. But if you can also provide us with the total spending, it's federal, state, local, miscellaneous. There is a chart. I don't know where to find that. I find it every year, but it's like a Easter egg hunt.
Right. We with our summary points that we'll be sending out later today, we will be sending you a reference guide to local government and state aid reports with links. So you'll be able to link directly where these reports are on the DLS website. But I do have the question on total per pupil funding for public schools. I have the chart right in front of me. Right now, when you look at total per pupil funding for public schools, it averages around $17,300 per student. It ranges from around $15,000 in Frederick County to over $20,000 in Worcester and Somerset County. Baltimore County is ranked 15th in the state at around $16,500 per student. Just in comparison, Baltimore City is ranked at number 5 at $18,400.
All right, I love that total, we did to see federal, state. And finally, Mr. Chair, indulge me for one more question. There is another chart that you produce that says the amount of money that taxpayers in each county. Baltimore County sends X amount of dollars to Annapolis and they get X amount back. So I think you even do it on a dollar per dollar, like for every dollar that Baltimore County sends to Annapolis, they end up getting 75 cents back for, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you can, include that as well, because I think that's helpful for us to see the big picture on, Baltimore County's funding and how it's working out. Thank you.
That information is in our balance sheet report, and that is also on the internet. And I just pulled up the report. So for every dollar generated in local tax revenues that goes into the state government, around 38 cents is returned to local governments. In Baltimore County, it's around 30 cents. So it's below the state average. And for example, in Baltimore City, it's around 85 cents. So for every dollar collected in Baltimore City, around 85 cents will go back to the city government and state aid. In Baltimore County, for every dollar generated in taxes, 30 cents goes back. The state average is 38 cents. Only one jurisdiction in the state receives more money than they generate, and that's Somerset County. They get $1.30 back for every dollar they generate.
But that's a much smaller budget, right? Because I think how many people live in Somerset County, like 20,000. But thank you. Thanks for indulging me.
Thank you, Delegate. And just to clarify for the members, this document was sent yesterday. It's in the drive for the delegation if anybody's looking for it. And again, from an appropriation standpoint too, this is a lot of information, and I've known DLS to be very open to setting up meetings and also drilling down as deep as members would like to, as long as you set up time to talk
Correct.
with them. And I know they've been. So thank you, Mr. Birch. And I see one more question from Delegate Hill. When you're ready, Delegate.
Sorry, trying to get it. Okay. Thank you very much, both of you, for the presentation. On page 19, fire and rescue aid trend is we're getting less and less from 2019 to 2023, consistently less and less. Is this a problem with the funding sources, because that trend holds up for many of the counties? Or is there something else going on here? I'm just trying to get a little better understanding of what we see happening.
This program's funding is held constant at $15 million. It's set in statute. And the county by county allocation is based on the number of property tax accounts. So every year they get the information from SDAT. So it's not based on the amount of assessments, it's based on the number of accounts. And so if there is some type of allocation change, if like one jurisdiction has more accounts, like more homes established, like jurisdictions with faster growing building constructions will be getting more funding under this, because it's based on the number of accounts, property tax accounts, not the assessments.
Okay, thank you. And do you know how many years we've been set at 15 million, when the last time was that number was changed?
Valerie, can you go to page 18?
And if it's too difficult, that's fine, I can.
It was set in statute in 2013.
Wow, okay, thank you very much.
Almost 10 years. Okay.
Further questions for the panelists? Seeing none, as always, thank you for presenting the, the local aid, the local state aid to local government. And I'm sure you'll have some questions from members after this is over. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Jumping around on our agenda, we're going to move to another bill hearing for HB 585, Baltimore County Orphans Court Judges and Surviving Spouses Pensions. The sponsor is me. So I'll pass the con to Delegate Brooks. And with that, I'll start my presentation. I believe we have Ms. Julie Fisher in the room. Judge, you're here.
Good morning. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I'll cut to you in one moment. And just easy bill, although don't we always say that when it's our pieces of legislation? So this bill is cross-filed with the Senate delegation chair, not precedent setting. There are a number of jurisdictions in the state that provide a pension to their orphans court judges. Baltimore County is not one of them. So this legislation would put us in line with some of those other jurisdictions that provide a pension. I believe, and Ms. Fisher will also go into this when she speaks, I think it's the only elected position in the county that doesn't have a pension system. So we would be just getting them in line with every other elected position that is elected in the county at a certain level, to make sure that there's benefits involved with taking the position, serving that position for a period of time, and also, as I think we all know, attracts quality candidates to then run for these positions and provide services to the county for a longer and extended period of time. Happy to put this bill in. I think it's a move in the right direction, and I'll take questions after Ms. Fisher presents.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, delegates. Nice to see you all and some familiar faces. Yes, House Bill 585 is really just more of a uniformity bill. All of the other major jurisdictions and large jurisdictions and most of the smaller jurisdictions in Maryland have pensions available for their orphans court judges. Baltimore County under 2108 is specifically excluded, as are a couple of other jurisdictions. Most of those jurisdictions are provided for in different subsections, but for some reason, Baltimore County is not. So Baltimore County Orphans Court is a very, very busy jurisdiction. In fact, last year we opened approximately 1/6 of the total estates in the entire state of Maryland. So we are very busy. We're here 5 days a week. We work very hard, and we would ask for, as Chair Young said, that we have this ability to have a benefit that's comparable to our peers in other jurisdictions to create a more uniform system. I think that that's basically all. I have spoke to the Baltimore County Senate delegation on Monday and was at judicial proceedings on Tuesday. So I've had a fairly favorable response thus far, but I'm happy to entertain any questions or answer anything you all may want to know about the Orphans Court or this bill in particular.
I'm sorry. I forgot I was taking over. Yeah, we'll entertain any questions. Does any member have any questions for Judge Fisher? Oh, I see. Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Judge Fisher. Can you just remind us of what the annual salary for Orphans Court judges are in Baltimore County? And it looks like this bill doesn't have a vestment period, so this would kick in for a judge who served 1 year. Can you explain?
If that's not correct, it's actually a 2-term minimum, and it takes effect as of this year. We didn't want to go back in time and try and have any fiscal impact currently for other previous judges, most of whom who are still alive have state pensions and have moved on to other either judicial or elected positions. So you do have to have 2 terms, 8 years under your belt. So that's where the starting point would be, which is comparable with the other jurisdictions. So we kind of made this bill in line with most of the other jurisdictions all required at least 2 terms of sitting before it would kick in.
Okay, and the reminder on what the salary is.
The chief judge makes 75 and the associate judges make 70. And just to give you a little comparison, Baltimore City, the chief judge makes 87 and the associate judges make, I believe, in the upper 70s at this point. And they actually have half the number of estates that we do. Baltimore County, as you all know, not only has a large population, but has a large aging population. So our numbers just continuously increase every year based on, I think we're like 3rd in the nation proportionately for residents over 60 or 65 years old. So it's definitely a very busy court.
Thank you. And thanks for the service.
Chair recognizes that Delegate Metzger.
Yes. Thank you, Judge Fisher, for being here today. I think maybe the question be for the sponsor. Has Baltimore County weighed in on this at all?
Yes, they're in support of moving forward with a pension system for the
All right. That was my question.
Okay. Delegate Cordon.
Thank you. I actually had the same question that Delegate Metzger did, because it says that the bill imposes a mandate on local government could increase potentially significantly their liability. So as long as they're in favor, then that's my question.
I do have to tell you, Delegate Cardin, it's nice to see you, that I just went through the budget process in Baltimore County and was informed that we actually have the absolute smallest budget of any agency in Baltimore County. So hopefully
I'm just reading what the information we got. That's all.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, Delegate Bhandari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate Young, for bringing this wonderful bill. Judge Fisher, what is the rationale that we did not have this provision before? Was there any rationale behind it that we're just crafting this bill?
I have no idea when the bill was created. It's very specific to certain jurisdictions. It's more general to others. There have been updates to other jurisdictions, specifically Baltimore City and PG County as it's gone on. But Baltimore County, for some reason, was excluded, and I have no idea. I haven't been able to find out any reason why initially, whether there was supposed to be something else that was in play that never made it, would be my guess, but I'm not sure.
And Delegate, in some jurisdictions, there aren't Orphans Court judges, and they're lumped in with other positions that have a pension fund. So.
All righty, I see no other questions. Judge Julie, thanks for your presentation here. And
thank you all, and I appreciate all of your work and your time today, and thank you for hopefully a favorable report on this bill.
Okay, thank you. All righty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Chair. I'll try to back up with you. Okay.
All good. I'll take it back, and we'll move to, looks like we have Miss Sonia L. Cantara from the Baltimore County Library. Is she in the room, Barb?
I'm here.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. Didn't see you there. Welcome. Welcome
Thank
back.
you, Delegate Young. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me this morning. I'm really happy to be here. This week is Maryland Library Legislative Week. So a number of you have met with either myself or BCPL library managers to talk about what an asset BCPL has to the community that we all serve. Thank you for your time and attention throughout this week, but also this morning. So this morning, I'm just going to be talking a little bit more in depth about BCPL. That's some of the things that we've got going on and some of the things that we're hoping to achieve in the future. And I have a PowerPoint that I wanted to share. If you just give me a second, I can pull that up. Can you see that?
Yes, yes, you can.
Okay,
Yep.
very good. So this is information about our vision and our mission statement, and we provide access to the resources that are going to help people be successful in school, work, and in life. And that can include books and literacy, certainly, but it also includes technology and entertainment and recreation and opportunities to play and learn and discover and to make community connections. So we have something for everyone. We facilitate lifelong learning, and whether that means that we're going to help you get Wi-Fi access, or you're going to attend a resume writing class at the library, or we're going to provide you with one-on-one help to fill out a job application or a FAFSA form. We're going to give you access to a 3D printer, a referral to a community resource, hands-on instruction on how to repair a bike or cook dinner, you name it, we offer that at the library. And again, we have something for everyone. Public libraries are, I feel like, one of the last bastions of a democratic society. When everything in life, if you think about, is commodified, you really begin to appreciate how rare and special public libraries are. Everything that people have access to and the quality of what people have access to is very much based on what you can afford, unfortunately, and also based on sometimes what zip code you live in. So if you think about housing, entertainment, transportation, even unfortunately education and healthcare, all of those are commodified. Libraries are the only institution that, regardless of whether you are a millionaire or you're experiencing homelessness, you get access to the exact same resources and the same level of services. We're here for everybody, and we really do work to level the playing field so that everybody in the community can succeed and thrive. Public libraries are about transformation. We transform individual lives, families, whole communities. We are here to serve everyone from all walks of life at all stages of life. Every great city, county, or community has a great library. And conversely, you cannot have a great community or a great Baltimore County with an under-resourced public library system. Investing in public libraries is investing directly in your community and in the people in your community. During the pandemic, we really turned on a dime to figure out how to provide high-touch public library service in a time when we all needed to be masked up and 6 feet apart. There really was no playbook for how to be able to provide public library service during a pandemic, but I'm really proud of BCPL and the library community in Maryland in general, because we all really stepped up to the plate to serve our community when they needed us most. We launched curbside pickup to ensure that our community still had access to our physical collection. We also beefed up our digital collection significantly, and we saw double-digit increases in the number of people checking out ebooks and e-audiobooks from their public library. We also launched free curbside pickups. Typically we charge for prints, but we gave all that away for free because we know that people had limited computer access and printing access at home. We also launched the circulation of Wi-Fi hotspots in Chromebooks for the first time. So now that the pandemic is slowly receding into the background and we're contemplating what normal looks like or what the new normal is, I think it's safe to say that there's probably going to be no going back to normal post-COVID. COVID laid bare all of our weaknesses as a community and as a nation. What started as a public health crisis spiraled into an economic, mental health, educational, digital equity, housing, food insecurity crises, and on and on and on. So we can't go back to post-pandemic time and pretend that we didn't have food lines in our communities, or that we didn't see small businesses falter, or that we didn't see children on their devices in parked cars at the libraries after hours trying to complete school assignments, and then pretend like we can go back to normal. So the new normal includes a greater awareness of the most vulnerable among us, and having a commitment towards greater responsiveness to the needs of the community. And libraries and BCPL in particular, we are poised to be able to serve our community in the ways that's needed. At BCPL, we're concentrating more than ever on serving our diverse community with equity and eradicating any and all barriers to access. Libraries of the future have to be flexible and adapt to changing preferences and expectations of a 21st century audience. Not only that, but we are about being community connectors. I like to say that the word public comes before the word library. And that just kind of demonstrates what our emphasis is at BCPL. It's about serving the public, serving our community. One of the ways that we did that is by going fine-free. Part of that commitment is making sure that everyone has unfettered access to the public library, and removing all barriers to access, particularly for the most vulnerable in our community, is a top priority for BCPL. Libraries have historically charged late fines to encourage or induce people to return books and materials on time. And it's problematic because it's an outmoded way of doing business. And unfortunately, it hurts the people who need access to libraries the most. Most of us here in this virtual room, if we get a late fine, it's a nuisance, it's an inconvenience, but we can afford to pay it. But for the most vulnerable among us, a late fine is catastrophic, and it completely cuts off access to the public library. In March of 21, thankfully, thanks to the General Assembly, we were able to go fine-free for youth. There was a bill that was passed, Building Lifelong Library Learners Act. And we were really excited to be able to implement that. We were able to waive the fines off of 13,000 youth library cards here in Baltimore County. We currently have put in a request to the governor for one-time supplemental funding to help cover the cost of going fine-free for youth. And so that if we are able to get that one-time funding, it'll help us sustain library services for youth and families in Baltimore County. So hoping for your support on that. In July of 21, we were able to take going fine-free for youth a step further and go fine-free for all. And thanks to the support from County Executive Johnny Olszewski, we were able to waive library fines on 70,000 library cards. And we were so pleased to be able to do that. In the few months and in the time since we've been fine-free for all, 30% of those inactive and blocked accounts have come back to the library. People are coming back to the library, they're rediscovering what we have to offer, and they're also bringing back materials that they've been holding on to in fear. Most notably, we had somebody return a book from 1957 and 1983 that they were holding on to, and we're seeing many, many examples of that. A new program that we launched this past year is our social worker in the library. Libraries are a trusted place where people can come when they have no place else to go. Sometimes people are lost, sometimes people are in crisis, and libraries are safe and welcoming. We're a judgment-free place, and we're trusted, and so people come to us. We have a long history of connecting people with social services and resources, but at the end of the day, we're librarians, we're not social workers. So we have hired our first social worker, and she is based on the east side of the county. And we're in the process of hiring a second one who is going to be focused on the west side of the county. And then eventually we will have a third one. But the social worker does everything and anything that a social worker would do, but they do it in the library setting. So they're doing crisis intervention, referrals for housing, food, drug treatment, mental health access, you name it. But it's been a fantastic resource that we have now embedded at BCPL. This was the newest addition to our BCPL fleet, and I see delegates Forbes and Feldmark in the front there that were there for our ribbon cutting. It was a really happy day. We are the first and only library in the country to have a service like this. The Mobile Library Law Center is in partnership with Maryland Legal Aid. We provide access to legal information and free legal advice. We've been concentrating on areas with highest need. So on Wednesdays, the vehicle is on the west side of town. On Thursdays, it's on the east side of town. And we partner with a number of agencies throughout the community. We advertise heavily within the library, but also with our partner agencies online and via flyers to let people know about the program. And walk-on services are available. So wherever the vehicle is, you can show up. No appointment is necessary, and get on board, and there's a lawyer on hand who can help you with any sort of legal issue that you have. So tenant landlord issues, expungements, custodies, divorce, immigration issues, you name it, they're there to serve, and it's all free via the public library. Food distribution is something that we've been doing a lot of over the past few years, and we had to do it even more so during the pandemic. Hungry children can't learn, and they certainly can't take advantage of the rich resources that we offer at BCPL. Like many communities, there is food insecurity in Baltimore County, and BCPL has stepped up to the plate to help address this issue. We've been offering food distribution since 2015, when we were offered snacks to children during the school year, after school, and we would offer meals during the summer. But then during the pandemic, when the schools were closed, many children did not have access to the breakfast and lunch that they were getting at school. So we stepped up to the plate, and we were distributing meals to kids, breakfast and lunch at 12 locations around the county. Last year, for example, we distributed 77,000 meals, which is pretty significant. Now that school has reopened and they're serving meals to students during the school day, BCPL is now offering school for children after school, on nights, and on weekends. So we do snacks and we do dinner, and we're really pleased to be able to do this. Another way that BCPL is pushing forward is by helping to address digital inequity. Internet access isn't a luxury, it's a necessity that's required for work, school, and for anybody to just function in life. We all need it like air or water. Libraries have historically been at the fore of providing free access to the internet and technology, as well as teaching digital literacy skills and providing access and exposure to emerging technology like 3D printers. But what happens when the library is closed after hours or for a whole year during a global pandemic? So we did step up to the plate to provide access to Wi-Fi hotspots and Chromebooks during the pandemic, but these are all Band-Aid solutions that don't fully address digital inequity in communities. More permanent solutions are needed. BCPL is really happy to partner with the county on an effort to expand internet access in Baltimore County and to address the true issues behind digital inequity, which ultimately have to do with infrastructure and affordability. A big focus for us at BCPL is making sure that we have 21st century spaces. We just recently, this is a shot of our Reisterstown Library, which reopened after an extensive renovation in September. And a number of you were there. Speaker Jones was there, Senator Hedelman was there, Delegates Brooks and Jalisi were there to help us celebrate, which was a really, really happy day for us. As you can see, I mean, it's refreshed, it's inviting, it's vibrant, it's modern, and that's what all of our facilities need to be. People still use libraries, but they just use them in different ways. And our libraries have to be flexible to adapt to the changing preferences and needs and expectations of a 21st century community. We have 19 facilities around the county, and 11 of them need to be brought up to date so that they are modern and inviting and relevant. Reisterstown Library is unique because we put in a preservation station there. And it's a place where people can go and digitize old film and cassette tapes and photos into digital media. And today's libraries provide state-of-the-art AV technology and collaborative workspaces where people can do those types of activities. Today's libraries offer our community hubs and their gathering places. The pandemic showed us how hungry people are for community and connection. At the end of the day, we're all social animals and we need each other, and we're stronger together, and libraries provide that space for neighbors and community to meet. Today's libraries offer interactive early learning spaces and dedicated spaces for people of all ages, and collaborative maker spaces, and spaces to create and exhibit art. Today's libraries typically have art studios and learning labs and classrooms and gallery spaces. These pictures that you're seeing here are from the Hive in Hereford. Hereford was renovated in 2016. If you look closely at the pictures, you can see toddlers, children, teens, adults, seniors, families, community, all using the same space. And these are the types of experiences that libraries create. Catonsville Library is slated for renovation later on this year. We're looking forward to doing extensive improvements to the interior. Catonsville is our second oldest facility. It's one of our busiest branches, has aging infrastructure that's worn. It's outdated on the inside, and it really just doesn't serve our community well. Catonsville is, as you probably all know, is Music City, Maryland. So in a nod to that, Catonsville Library is going to have digital music recording equipment. And that, again, is indicative of what libraries offer today, which is really dynamic, interactive learning experience that don't necessarily fit the mold of a traditional library, but yet this is what we're doing today. After Catonsville, our next project is Woodlawn Library. Woodlawn Library is unique because in the lower level, there was a health department office or space. Well, they've recently vacated that space and they are in a new place in Security Square Mall. So we've taken over that space and we have a unique opportunity to do something truly transformative for that community. Woodlawn Library and the Woodlawn community is higher on the social vulnerability index. So there is an opportunity for us to, again, really create a destination place and do something really awesome. The library is located next door to Woodlawn High School. So every day after school, we typically see anywhere from 150 to 300 teens at the library. And there's really nothing else for them to do in the community, no place else really for them to go. We're really hoping to create that really exciting, vibrant destination place for teens at the library. And Woodlawn Library is also the site of our Storyville Village, which is there for babies and children up to the age of 5 and their families. So wouldn't it also be great to have something great for teens who are on the other end of the youth spectrum? We are about to embark on a design study. We're looking forward to doing extensive community engagement to find out from the community what they want to see in their public library, and hoping for a new facility and hoping to be able to start on that next year. After Woodlawn Library, our next priority is Lansdowne Library. State guidelines say that there should be 1 square foot per capita of public library space. And at BCPL, we are at 0.55 square foot of per capita, 1.55 square foot public library space per capita. So we have a ways to go. Lansdowne is a clear example of that, where Lansdowne, based on the size of the community that it's serving, should be 3 times its current size. So we're hoping for a brand new building, and we're hoping for a larger building that fully meets the needs of the community. Lansdowne community, like Woodlawn, is also higher on the social vulnerability index. So again, hoping to do something transformative for the people in that community, hoping to do something that gives people hope and ties into existing social assets there in the Lansdowne community, like the senior center and the public schools nearby. Over the next year, we will be engaging in a feasibility study, and again, hoping for a brand new facility that has some curb appeal, that has natural light, and incorporates all of the features of public libraries today. After Lansdowne, our next project is Towson Library. The average age of our facilities throughout the county is about 48 years old, and Towson Library is one of our older facilities. If you think about how much the world has changed in the past 48 to 50 years, Just think of how much the world has changed in the past 20 years, right? So when our libraries were built, people weren't using technology. People were accessing different information differently. They didn't have devices. So our libraries need to keep pace with that. And so Towson Library is an example of a library that really doesn't fully meet the needs of a 21st century audience. And it also has significant accessibility issues. So over the next few years, we're really hoping to do something transformative with Towson Library. And the other priority for us is Essex Library. Essex Library is also too small based on state guidelines. And Essex Library and the community is also higher on the social vulnerability index. So again, hoping to do something transformative for the people of that area. And also hoping for a new facility, something in an area that's walkable, more accessible to children and families. And today's libraries also do a better job of incorporating the outdoors in with the indoors. So it's not just about the building and the four walls, and a roof. It's about the outdoor space. So today's libraries typically have, courtyards and spaces for outdoor programming and those types of activities. And again, incorporating the outdoor into the indoors. And that's it. We can't do it all alone. We are serving the same constituents, Baltimore County Public Library, and we are all working towards the same goal. And we're hoping for a stronger, more vibrant community where everyone in Baltimore County can prosper and thrive. And I thank you for your support and thank you for having me speak today. And I look forward to answering any questions that you might have of me.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions for Ms. Sonia? See Delegate Ruth. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this presentation and for all of your work. This is just amazing seeing knowing the bits and pieces of it and not knowing all of it, but just seeing everything you're doing is just really inspirational. And the renovations in general are pretty exciting. Both Woodlawn, because I know that's been a big problem with the high school students and coming over, and they really need some place, in Catonsville. But I just had a question about Catonsville, the digital recording equipment. That would be where people could come and sing and record it, say? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's exactly what that is. And, it's not something that you would see in a traditional library, but libraries today offer experiences like that. One of the challenges of public libraries today is that people still come to libraries for traditional reasons, right? So they come to read and study and do research. So they want quiet spaces, but more and more they're coming to libraries for non-traditional reasons, social, noisy activities, like, recording music in a recording studio or singing or, getting together in large groups. And so we have to be able to accommodate both of those types of functions. And so hopefully with the renovation, we should be able to do that. Today's libraries offer significant noise abatement spaces, right? So if you need to go and sing music and record music, you're not going to be disturbing people who are at the library to read or to study. And hopefully with the renovation, we'll be able to achieve something like that.
I think that's really exciting, and I think that's going to be a great service to the community. So thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you, Delegate.
Delegate Mangione.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry if I missed this. Is there a bill to increase, and that you're trying to get support for increasing the library funding?
Yes, I'm glad you asked about that. It is House Bill 383, which would increase state per capita funding for all public libraries, including Baltimore County Public Library. And for us, if that bill passes, the amount of funding that we would receive would be pretty significant and would have a pretty big impact on our ability to do all the things that we are doing, but then also be able to branch off in different directions to continue to serve our community and meet the needs of the public.
And I'm not trying to take away at all from the good intent and all the work you're trying to do. But when maybe I'm getting a lot older than I thought, because when I remember libraries, I didn't remember the books, the renting magazines, using the internet. But you're obviously doing a lot more with the after school meals, the free legal advice, with if you can explain a little bit more how that works. They go around and offer legal advice to just anybody that happens to be in the area that has a question.
Yeah, this is in partnership with Maryland Legal Aid. So at the library, we're not lawyers, right? So we can't provide legal advice, but they are, and they can do that, and that's what they do. And so they are on the vehicle itself, and wherever the vehicle is parked, if you see it, you just hop on and you get the opportunity to speak to a lawyer and get your questions asked. And it's a huge relief for a lot of people. If you have to go see a lawyer about anything, it's really expensive. And if you can't afford it, what do you do? And this is something that the library is happy to be able to provide in partnership with Maryland Legal Aid, and is no cost to the customer.
Okay, and just one last thing. So I guess then, thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, what's that?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, thank you. So I guess then you envision more and more going away from a traditional library that we know, and thus, of course, the price and your budget will continue to, I guess, grow, and that's why you bring these bills. I mean, again, I really respect the intent of everything you're doing. I had no idea that the library is now doing so much social work outside of what I grew up with, and many of us. So I do appreciate it, and I do appreciate learning a little bit more about it. So thank you for your time.
We're stepping up to the plate to serve our community, and this is what our community needs, and we're happy to do it. This is where 21st century libraries are today.
I share in Delegate Mangione's astonishment at your ability to, one, know what's going on in the community and adapt to the needs of the community. So thank you very much. Delegate Brooks.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ms. Sonia, for all you do for the libraries. And yeah, you had mentioned the Reisterstown, that tremendous renovation that we had there, and it is beautiful. Yeah. My question is that if, because of the COVID, and those restrictions, of course, access was limited. Is that access of people, is that foot traffic coming back now, or is there still tremendous digital access?
So we have reopened to the public fully since May of 21, and people can come back to the library. And what we found is that people are coming back, but we also now have people who they've acclimated to checking out their books online. They've discovered ebooks and the audiobooks. So we're seeing that shift has remained steady. And so I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. So again, people still use libraries, but they use us in different ways, and they discover different ways of using the library.
All right, one follow-up question. Book challenges and bans, the CRT thing, critical race thinking, is that something that we should be concerned about? Has that impacted our libraries any?
Not really. It does affect other communities more so than ours. We might occasionally get somebody who has a complaint about a book that we might have on the shelf, but we haven't had any significant challenge to the materials that we provide. We provide materials for the community, and we put books on the shelf that we know that people want to read and on topics that people want to learn about. So in the interest of that, we are supportive of providing information to people so that they can learn about topics such as critical race theory or other topics of interest.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Ebersol.
Sure. Thank you so much. Relevant to an earlier comment, I know that you guys are getting around to doing streaming somehow or another soon, and boy, that's keeping up. It's good stuff. I was the sponsor of the Building Lifelong Library Learners Act, a lot of L's there. I appreciated that you took it to heart and has actually moved forward with fine free. There's no evidence to show that charging people fines makes them bring back books faster. So really good on you for that. And you referenced House Bill 383, but that's a grant program for libraries and for books. I wonder if I could just get offline. I want to know what that bill number is that provides a better per capita. We did that at the time in that bill, but we want to increase it again. So I looked up the bill, and it's one that's in Ways and Means. And I'm eager to see the one that's the appropriation for better per capita. If you can get somebody in your office or something to get that for me, I want to figure out how to support that.
Okay. Yep. We'll definitely follow up with you on that. Thank you,
Thanks. And I'm
Delegate.
so pleased that Lansdowne's on your list. I keep my shoes in that shoebox occasionally, and then I pull them out. So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Bhandari.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Sonia, for doing everything, creating, promoting, and executing program for all ages. My question would be, whenever I go to the library, I see our homeless patron. They don't have anywhere to go for human interaction or basic shelter needs. I love the idea of expanding the scope. And, you know, I've seen sometimes libraries, folks are making personal calls to their patrons to check in on them. Do we have any program that the library work with the local health or human services to serve our homeless population? They don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge for us. Public libraries are welcome to everybody, and even our homeless customers or people experiencing homelessness. That's one of the reasons why we started the social worker program at the library. The social worker is concentrated, the one that we have right now is concentrated on the east side, and she's also concentrated at the locations that typically see higher numbers of people who are experiencing homelessness. And she works closely with the Department of Health and Human Services. She interacts directly with those individuals to try to find out, okay, what do you need? What resources we can tap you into. So that's kind of part of our response to serving those individuals who have those significant needs.
Thank you.
Delegate Hill.
Thank you. And thank you for all you've done. I'm thinking about what it was like when you came here last year and how much you had to take on. Really appreciate all that you've done. So with respect to Lansdowne, particularly, but also Catonsville, are you anticipating that there's going to be a need for additional land acquisition, or do you think that you'll be able to increase the capacity needed on the current footprint that you have?
Thank you, Delegate Hill. Very good question. For Lansdowne, yes, it would require some land acquisition. So that's why we need to do a feasibility study to see if the current site it can accommodate a larger building. And if it can't, then the conversation has to be, well, where else can we go in that area to be able to accommodate a larger building? Currently, the building's about 5,000 square feet. We need something that's 15,000 square feet at least to really adequately serve the community, the service area right now. So that's part of the discussion.
Okay, and so
you're muted.
Right, making it 2 or 3 stories won't serve. You need a larger piece of land to do it.
Again, that's where the feasibility study comes in, because if you have a building that is 2 or 3 stories high, the land needs to be able to sustain it, that type of weight. So it's either a 1-story, very large building or a very high building. And we just have to do the study just to see what that piece of land can accommodate.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Last question, Delegate Forbes.
Thank you. I just want to wrap up and thank you, Mr. Chair. But thank you, Ms. Alcantara, Antoine, for your presentation and the work you do every day, and the people that man your libraries every day. And I'm going to ask all my colleagues to follow you on social media, because whoever does your social media does amazing work and promote the programs that the library is doing. They really pivoted during the pandemic and offered so many interesting online options for people. And so we should all be promoting them every day, and you'll really enjoy their social media. So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Forbes. We have the best staff at BCPL. We really do.
Well, thank you for giving us the presentation. And I just comment, but not a question. My wife and I are one of the additions to that e-library that you all expanded. So yeah. So thank you so much. I'm sure there'll be some other questions and comments. A lot of the information provided eye-opening with the work that you all do. And I think we're all here to help you wherever we can. Please don't be a stranger to reach out and let us know how we can do that.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for your support. Take care.
Everyone, we have a guest from Baltimore City, Delegate Sandy Rosenberg. who will be one requested, and we were happy to have him come by to present on his bill HB 632, Baltimore East-West Corridor Transit Study Requirements, joint with Baltimore City. After discussion, we felt it was important for him to present bill to us as well as to his own home delegation. Delegate Rosenberg, when you're ready, go ahead. If you unmute yourself.
There we go. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Pleasure to be before our neighboring delegation once again. The last time I spoke before you, I believe, was on a certain racetrack and the redevelopment of that facility, which benefits the Baltimore region. And that is also the case for the Red Line, or would be the case. The bill before you is prompted by the infrastructure bill that passed the Congress this past year. And that bill, thanks to our congressional delegation, specifically Senators Cordon and Van Hollen, Congressman Infume Sarbanes and Rupersberger, includes language requiring the federal Secretary of Transportation to, quote, provide full and fair consideration to projects that seek an updated rating after a period of inactivity following an earlier rating and evaluation. That covers the Red Line. It may cover other projects across the country, but it gives us an opportunity to revive the Red Line with the funding that would be available under existing federal programs or under the infrastructure bill, which was a bipartisan bill when it passed the Congress. So what this bill does, what the bill before you does, is require the department, our Department of Transportation, to undertake all steps necessary to complete planning, preliminary engineering, and the environmental policy process that would be necessary for the next administration come January in Annapolis to decide, hopefully, to move forward with the Red Line. As you know, this is the path of the Red Line is from East Baltimore, from the Hopkins Broadway facility, west through downtown, through, all politics being local, the 41st district in the Edmondson Avenue corridor, and then out to Social Security in Baltimore County, that complex. So this is a bill that would require the Department of Transportation to undertake that review and put things in a position for the next governor to make a decision as to whether to go forward with the Red Line and seeking federal funding. I would note that this bill just received a unanimous favorable report from the Baltimore City delegation. And that's my pitch. That's what I would, I think, make the case for this bill and for the Red Line, which would provide needed, essential mass transit opportunities for our constituents to go to work, to go to school, and to go to Social Security to get their benefits taken care of. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. Questions for Delegate Rosenberg, Delegate Ruth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate Rosenberg, for bringing this bill. My district includes Woodlawn, where, of course, the Red Line would come out to. This is something that's really important for my district, as well as for Baltimore City, and something that, that I've focused on personally. And so I'm a little concerned about. I know that MTA is doing an east-west corridor study right now. And I'm worried that might come out with the recommendation being, say, a bus rapid transit, which certainly is good for getting people from point A to point B, but wouldn't have the same economic development benefits that a rail system would have in terms of, encouraging development. So do you have, this is maybe not directly related to your bill, but is there and I haven't looked at the bill, I apologize, but is there a way that we can prevent that or somehow, I'm just worried that that's going to come out and then that would be impacting on this bill. I'm not sure how to ask what I'm trying to ask.
Address some of the concerns.
I have not heard from the Department of Transportation, the State Department of Transportation about the bill. The hearing is next week.
Okay.
But that's very much something to keep in mind as to, and you and I will talk further. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll know more at the public hearing. They did not appear, transportation did not appear at the city delegation meeting earlier today.
Okay. And I appreciate their focus on the east-west corridor, but I think that, it needs to, but anyway, we can talk offline on that. And the other question is, do you know if the work that was done on like environmental impact, if that can just be updated or if that has to be restarted?
I don't know specifically. I would assume it has to be updated to some extent. That's why we included it in the bill.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this bill.
Pleasure.
Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Delegate, thanks so much for bringing this bill. I think it's exciting that there's at least the possibility that the red line could potentially be revived and seek federal funding again. I guess my question is a follow-up to what Delegate Ruth said about the planning. I know that the original proposal went through years of design and planning. Are you through this proposal, would you anticipate that the amount of time and effort for this review of new red line proposal would be compressed because we do have all that existing planning, even though it's from several years ago?
I would point out that the bill says on page 4, line 13 to 14, the department shall give due consideration to previously completed engineering and environmental studies. So we don't want to reinvent the red line here. We want to build on what we know. I would also add that when the very first meeting I went to regarding the red line was at Edmondson Senior High School. And as many of you probably know, the highway to nowhere is adjacent to Edmondson Village. And there were some people there who had been displaced by the highway to nowhere. Their houses had been condemned. So we put into the law for the red line in its previous incarnation, Delegate Oaks, Delegate Carter then, and myself, along with Senator Gladden, legislation that prohibited condemnation of anyone's property that would displace them in order to build the red line. And that is also a part of this bill.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Additional questions for Delegate Rosenberg? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Glad we could make it work out in your schedule.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Moving on the agenda, bill hearing for HB 826, Baltimore County Board of Education curriculum publication. Delegate Bodler, when you're ready. And Barb is letting in your panel folks now. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yep, you're
Can
good.
you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair and fellow members of the delegation. For the record, I'm Delegate Joe Bodler, here to talk about HB 826, Baltimore County Board of Education curriculum publication. This simple bill defines curriculum and requires the board to post it on their website. The bill defines curriculum as instructional materials, assessment techniques, links to textbooks or just the names of textbooks, and of course, syllabi. There are several bills right now that are in the General Assembly this year dealing with publishing school curriculum online. But this bill differs in that it does not place the responsibility on the individual schools. The information will not be hosted on school websites. but it will be the county's responsibility and is only required to be published on the County Board of Education's website. As a curriculum is already subject to board approval. This bill does not intend to increase the workload, but to make this information that is already known to the board accessible to the parents. This bill will help increase transparency, help parents be aware of what their children are learning so they can be actively involved in their education. And it will help parents prepare their children. As a father of 4 children who attended the public school system, I can tell you years ago, they came home and you had the opportunity to look through the book to see what it is that the kids are learning and really how better to help them. Also, you had American Education Week, which gave you the opportunity to go into the classroom and to talk with the teachers, and the teachers would explain to you exactly what they were going to teach. And many times they even had reading books and things like that, that you could get up, walk around, take a look at, and have a better understanding of how your children were going to be educated. I have 13 grandchildren, and I have been actively involved in a lot of their education. Some of them are going to public schools right now in my district. And it's been difficult. It's been much more difficult because, you know, as technology has progressed, we've gone to tablets, we've gone to, laptops. And so the information is a little bit harder for parents to really take a look at. And I think what's happened over the years as we've transgressed from using textbooks to technology, I think a lot of parents sort of didn't even really do the homework they needed to do. But I think there was an awakening over the last few years because of how we've gone virtual. And I think a lot of parents started to look at what was going on through what their kids were learning in the virtual sphere. And I think they started to wake up to the fact that we really don't know what is being used in the classroom. And I've received a lot of emails from parents in my district who are very concerned about that. And I think this is a way that we can give them that opportunity so that they can better assist even the school system to have their kids better prepared to learn. So with that, I would like to ask this delegation to give it a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. And you have 3 folks signed up in support. We have Mr. Timothy, excuse me if I mispronounce your name, Timothy Goetz, Mary Taylor, Amy Adams. And for reference, folks, you have 2 minutes to present. And Mr. Goetz, if you want to begin, I will start the timer now.
Amy Adams isn't there anymore. She
Mr. Goetz? Miss Mary Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Young. Good morning to the Baltimore County delegation. Chair Young, my name is Mary Taylor for the record. I live in District 6 and I'm the Vice President of the Baltimore County Student Coalition. I'm here today speaking in favor of House Bill 826, the curriculum publication. The best predictor of student success is the extent to which families encourage learning at home and involve themselves in their children's education. When parents are engaged in their children's school lives, students have the home support knowledge they need not to only finish their assignments, but also develop a lifelong love of learning. Teachers who focus on parent engagement often see a profound change in their classrooms. The more parents involved in their children's education, the better their entire class's motivation, behavior, and grades become. Encouraging parent engagement is more than common courtesy. It's one of the best ways to create a positive learning environment for every student. I found that the most redeeming quality that has come from the last 2 years from the pandemic shutdowns was that parents were provided a window into schools, classrooms, and learning. In a word, transparency. HB 826 is our way to keep this transparency and build on it. Taxpayers, parents included, should be able to review what public schools are teaching. And this sounds simple, but without this bill, our state has made it very difficult for taxpayers to access this material. Policies that require parents to physically visit a school office to see the school's reading list, where they limit the times of day during which someone can access this material, or filing formal FOIA or PIA requests are obstacles to civic engagement. In a digital world where we now live, K through 12 students and their parents deserve the equivalent of syllabus each year for core subjects such as math, language, arts, science, and social studies, including basic information on the curriculum resources being used by a child's teacher. If done the right way, we can serve the needs of teachers, parents, and students while removing some of the politics and divisiveness over what is taught in our classroom. Transparency is something I think that allows all of us for that conversation to know what is being taught. Everybody should be able to rally around the fact that we shouldn't be teaching something in secret. Please continue to find ways of fostering a positive relationship between our public schools, teachers, and parents. Please consider a favorable vote for HB 826, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Ms. Adams, do we have you in the room?
Yes, good morning.
Go ahead, and I will start the timer now.
Okay. Hello to the Baltimore County delegation, and I see a couple of our Board of Education members on here as well. I'm speaking in favor of HB 826, the curriculum publication. I am a parent of 3 school-aged children here in Baltimore County, and I've been a very active participant in board meetings and committee meetings over the last 2 years. I've written to the administrators in the curriculum departments and to board members asking for more information about specific recent curriculum changes. I've been told that a summary of curriculum is available online, but BCPS is unable to share detailed curriculum because it's protected as intellectual property. I was encouraged to schedule a time to meet with the department administrators at their office during the workday in order to view curriculum, and I did take advantage of that, but most families are not able to do so. Changes to curriculum are discussed in committee meetings that occur during the workday a couple of times each month. Rarely are these changes brought to the full board meetings held in the evenings or communicated clearly to parents. Most parents are not opposed to changes in curriculum, but just want to be informed when they occur and provided with the opportunity to ask questions. During the pandemic years, the curriculum department bought close to 10 new reading programs and a new math program. How much money was spent on these programs? How many teachers have been trained to fidelity in these programs? How many of these programs are being used in the classroom to benefit the children? I appreciate the intent of this bill to hold Baltimore County schools accountable for curriculum, and it's not meant to increase the workload of teachers. There are plenty of administrators to take charge of this. I am not a trained educator, but I have noticed a change in the way my 3 children have been taught. They range from 11th grade to 5th grade currently. There was a shift in the way that they were doing things, and not a positive one for my family. And looking at the academic data and the proficiency rates over the last 7 years, the shifts in curriculum don't seem to be evidence-based and really working for the majority of our students. So I appreciate you hearing my thoughts today, and I hope that you vote in favor of HB 826. Thank you.
Thank you. And is Mr. Timothy Goetz in the room?
Yeah. Is my mic working now?
There you go, sir. You're good, sir.
Right.
Go ahead.
Thank
Sir.
you. It's gutsy too. I appreciate the try. Anyway, good morning, members of Baltimore County delegation. I have testified today in favor of House Bill 826, which will require the Baltimore County Board of Education to publish the curriculum used for each course taught in Baltimore County Public Schools. As a parent of 3 children, I have a great interest in understanding the curriculum being taught in public schools. I'll start by saying that transparency in government is very important, as it is a means of retaining the public's trust in government institutions. When people try getting access to government data or information, or in this case, the curriculum, and encounter barriers in this process, that people start to draw suspicions into why the information isn't readily available. The curriculum may be available to view, but you can only view it at a certain place or a certain time, and or you might not be able to have that option to view it at all, depending on your work schedule. These barriers need to be removed, and curriculum needs to be easily accessible by the public. Parents were exposed to the curriculum during the year of virtual learning, and I would personally like to see this level of transparency continue, which is exactly what HB 826 provides. I think for the most part, parents expect their children to receive roughly the same level of education that they received when they were in public schools. However, the curriculum has changed over time, and for parents that want to be involved with their child's education, they need to understand what is being taught. This bill will also help in eliminating potential students' confusion between the concepts that are being taught in school and the parents relying on the concepts that they were taught while they attended school. So in closing, HB 826 provides a level of transparency required for parents to be involved with their child's education. And that's why I'm in favor of this bill. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now that we've heard from folks in support, I'll open up for questions. Delegate Impalaria.
Yes, thank you, Delegate Bowler, for bringing this forward. And I guess it was 50 years ago that I was in 6th grade and a controversial issue of, reproductive education came up, and parents were given the option back then, even though we didn't have computers, to understand what those courses were all about and to have the ability to help teach it at home if that's what they chose to do, or to opt their children out of it. So what you're asking for isn't a new concept. What you're asking for is to bring that concept into the modern educational system. I can see, someone saying, oh, this will just lead to people complaining. No, what it will actually lead to is parents having the opportunity to easily access the website, to see ahead of time what the educational programs are, and to be able to help teach their kids at home, be ahead of the curve. What's that?
Your question, Delegate. Those are statements.
Okay, well, I've watched Democrats talk for a long time, so I'm going to finish very quickly.
No, I didn't mean that, and I apologize. That timing was actually not for you.
I understand I'm a Republican, and we're
not.
No,
that wasn't what happened.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure you asked a question.
I am asking a question. So, and now you've thrown me off track. So now
sorry,
take 10 or 15 minutes to get back on track, but that's your fault, not mine. Anyway, so, I see this as a golden opportunity where parents, rather than arguing with the school system, can look and say, I really want to opt my child out of this history class or out of this health class. And, or I want to be able to prepare my child to tell them my viewpoints. As that, what this is all about, is this like to oversee what's going on, or to give parents an option, because every family is different. So it's just about giving parents better options on how to educate their children.
Go ahead, Delegate Butler.
That little button that has a microphone down in the left-hand corner. Isn't that so? And yes, that is so. Thank you, Delegate Impalaria. We can go ahead and move on while he's trying to figure that out. But thank you.
You got the question, Delegate. No problem. No problem.
Oh, he's there. He is.
Let me respond. I think the delegate makes some very, very good points. This is not necessarily, though, I think, an effort to necessarily allow parents to opt out of anything. This is so that they know what that curriculum is, and they can make their, it'll allow them to make decisions. I think we have to remember parents are the customers. And it's like anytime any of us, if we go to a company looking for a service, we want to know what that service is going to be. We want to know how much it's going to cost us. We want to know how long that service will last for. We want to know all the details of what that service would be so that we can make informed decisions. I think there are other processes available. A number of parents don't like what they see, that, they could approach the board, to voice their opinion about that. But right now, this bill does not address that part of it.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Shalega.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. As a former educator, I know the number one factor in student success is parent involvement. And I think this transparency would really help parents if they have a student, a child, that their child is struggling in a certain subject matter, they can access that information and come alongside them and help them. So this question is for Mary. Do any of the parents in your network actually currently have access to this information? Are any of the schools putting curriculum up online so parents can do that?
Not that I'm aware of. As a matter of fact, that seems to be the brick wall that most of them are faced against, is trying to find curriculum. And just to update you from a complaint from a parent yesterday, they were questioning why their child's tests are not being sent home. Apparently, Baltimore County Public Schools has decided that tests are not allowed to be sent home. So if your child receives a D or a failing grade, you have no way of reviewing this test. So there's all kinds of problems with transparency, not just with curriculum, but with paperwork coming home. We don't have access to what books are in our libraries. We're being told that a lot of this stuff is available online, but like you said earlier, Delegate Shalega, it's like going on an Easter egg hunt, trying to find stuff sometimes. And it's very difficult to navigate the Baltimore County Public School website, even trying to find any of this information.
Yeah, that's good to know. I've heard, parents call me as well and say they're telling me they can't, offer us this access, but I want that my colleagues here in Baltimore County Delegation to know I had dinner last night with one of our other colleagues that represents a different jurisdiction, and their daughter is in a charter school where she showed me the full access that she has to her daughter's curriculum, test scores. It was wonderful. So I know it's happening in other areas in our state, so we know it can happen. So roadblocks to keep the transparency out. I mean, parents need to help their kids. So thank you for bringing this bill, Delegate Boatler, and thanks, Mary, for everything you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions for this panel, I have two people signed up in opposition. I have Ms. Molly Joss, who has signed up in opposition. Ma'am, if you're here, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Delegate Pat.
And you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody, and Baltimore County House Delegation Committee. My name is Molly Joes, and I currently serve as a member at large on the Baltimore County Board of Education. I speak as an individual today and not on behalf of the board. I'm also a parent of 2 BCPS students. I'm here today to voice my opposition for Bill 826. This legislation is needless and redundant for the following reasons. Baltimore County Public Schools already post written curriculum to support parents. As a BCPS parent, I can log on to my parent account and review my elementary and high school child's curriculum online. I can see lessons that are being planned, quizzes or homework that's due for my children, and tag them about it. There's no secretive things being taught to my children. I can vouch for that as a parent and a board member. Our curriculum has to be updated to reflect our changing world. Robotics, coding, environmental stewardship, technology, humanities, and world languages, to name a few. I am a parent and what some would classify as a typical Asian tiger mom. I have an advanced degree in engineering, and I see how mathematics is taught today so differently than I was, and better. Furthermore, it is fortified by BCPS Board Policy 6000, Curriculum and Instruction. The board believes that the development and implementation of a digital platform for curriculum delivery will help to ensure that every student has access to an equitable, effective digital learning environment to equip each student in our school with critical 21st century skills needed to become a globally competitive citizen in a culturally diverse world. We have a national teacher shortage, including BCPS. So I hope this legislative body researches and supports our teachers, students, and schools in matters that are truly necessary. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. And we have Ms. Cheryl Pasteur also signed up in opposition. Ma'am, when you're ready.
Good morning again, Chair Young, Vice Chair Brooks, members of the Baltimore County House Delegation. I am here today as a seasoned educator in opposition. The articulated purpose of House Bill 826 is purported to have, quote, the curriculum used for each course taught by BCPS on the publicly accessible website. This means from pre-K to grade 12. Curriculum is as noted in the bill means state standards, scope and sequence of each course, goals, instructional models for students at all levels of skills and knowledge readiness, resources, along with both potential formative and summative assessments, and then applicable state assessments. I counted the pages from pre-K to grade 12, over 200 pages. The information is currently on the website as it always has been. We all agree, I hope, that we want our communities to be able to access the information easily. Admittedly, to find this information, one would have to know to go first to leadership, then to 3 more clicks to get to that information. What would be fruitful would be a link on the home page taking people directly to the desired information, not a bill. This is a website matter, not a legislative one. There is nothing to hide. If there is any concern about what is being taught on or the materials used, that should be addressed through, yes, being able to access the curriculum online and then communicating any questions or concerns with the school administration or with central office staff. Please, how about simply asking Dr. Williams to tell the webmaster to add a link on the homepage that will take visitors directly or more easily to the information. This is an opportunity for collaboration and communication. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions for the opposition? I see Delegate Impalaria.
Yes, Ms. Pasteur, sometimes the way we get things done is we have to pass a law. We can ask 100 times, 1,000 times, and the change won't happen. And so I believe what Delegate Boatler is saying is the change hasn't happened. So we need to pass a law to make sure it does, that they do follow this standard that they're now requesting. And so that's the reason for that. And I don't think I need an answer to that, but that is his point. And I hope I don't screw your name up here, because I just see Miss Josh up there. I don't know if there's more of the name, but so you say, if you're still there, that you can get all this information. Can you send each and every one of us exactly how you get that information? Because you can say it, but just saying it isn't enough. We actually physically need that documentation in front of us to see how that's done. And maybe there's just a few small improvements that need to be done. So my question for you is, can you, and as a board member, you should be able to, can you send all of us, not just me, but all of us, exactly how that information is accessed? And that's my question. Thank you.
May I address that since he spoke to me first, please? And I am just 1 week out of being on the board, so I can address that as well. Okay, may I address that?
Go ahead, Ms. Pasteur, then I'll address.
All right, thank you. Then go to Ms. Jones. Certainly. I can sit here right now and tell you, you go to leadership, then you go to committees, then you go to curriculum and instruction. There are too many steps. All right, you first have to know that that's what you have to do. That is why in my statement, I said it would be simpler to have one link that one can go to. I understand legislation very well, sir. I on the board, as a matter of fact, before I resigned, I was the chair of the government. Understand laws very well, but I also understand, after many years of living and experience, that sometimes when we don't communicate what we want and need, i.e., how do we get to this information quickly, it doesn't happen. it's a simple question. Ms. Jones can ask that question. She can certainly ask that question, and it might happen quicker than we would think, quicker than passing a bill. I do understand bills. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Ms. Jones.
And just to follow up real quick, I appreciate your testimony, and I appreciate the fact that you said there is a way to better do it. And we wouldn't know about that better way to do it had you not been here today. And we wouldn't know that this better way to take place unless Delegate Boatler brought this bill forward. So that's exactly what I am saying. There is no disrespect meant for either of the two people testifying.
I think their passions, everybody's putting it out there. I don't think that was somebody's feeling disrespected here.
No, but it is an issue that parents, because of the home learning on the computers, people want to know more. And we need to make sure that they have the easiest access to learn more, because not everybody is computer literate. So I thank you both for coming and testifying today. And I thank Delegate Boatler for bringing this very important bill. Thank you.
And Ms. Joseph, I may, Ms. Joseph, if I may move on.
Yes.
If I may, if I could move on to the last question, but I do want to work with you because my son is currently in Baltimore County Public Schools and I can access his curriculum. I'm happy to send to the delegation my process for taking a look, but it may not be getting all the information folks want, and happy to work with you and get that response back if that's okay. And I can move on to the other question.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, Delegate Erica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for being here. I'm wondering about the policy that's no longer allowing families access to the tests. Why was that decision made?
I'm not sure what policy you're talking about, Delegate. If you could specify, we have a lot of policies. I could certainly look into that and get back to you.
So the previous testimony mentioned that parents had been complaining that they were the kids were no longer being sent home with the hard copy of their test after it was graded. And that when they reached out, the teacher said that that's a BCPS policy not to send the test home.
I want to give latitude to everybody that has this particular question, but this particular question isn't related to the bill that Delegate Boatler has presented in terms of curriculum access. I want to.
Yeah. So my question is, if we're not getting it in physical, they're obviously not putting it online either. So if we want all of our child's data, it needs to either be online or sent home. I'm just wondering, why is it not being sent home? I mean, it's obviously not online either. So it should all be online, or it should be sent home. I want to know why is this? What is the impetus behind these kind of policies that are sort of shutting parents out and creating a huge lack of transparency? I mean, I would definitely want my children's test scores.
And go ahead, Ms. Jones.
Since I'm not sure about what you're sending about, I can just vouch for it as a parent. I do see my kids' test scores sent home. I do see how they do, and I do get on them when they don't do well on certain tests. This might be a localized problem, but I could certainly look into it. I have not had any issue as a parent. I have seen their test scores sent home, how they do in their MAP tests, how they do in their unit tests. It could be a localized problem, but I could certainly look into it. As a board member, we govern, we don't go into operations.
Okay, and then about the actual stuff that's in the bill that's listed out, are all of those items right now online, and it really is just we're not finding the links properly? I know that Miss Adams wrote in the comment section that she just went to look up 11th grade and it was blank.
I looked all of them up.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Which 5th grade link? Sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Pasteur. Were you addressing it? If this looks like it's a website issue, that's something that BCO
I'm sorry.
with.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So all of those things are things that you currently have online that are already in the bill. There's no like differentiation between what we currently have online and what's being requested.
May I speak, Mr. Chair? Okay.
You can respond to the question, yes.
All right, thank you. All right, when I counted those pages, and I did count those pages, I was going from pre-K through. I did go through pre-K through. I looked at the bill. The things that I listed in my testimony were the things that were attached to what was asked in the bill, what is curriculum. So I looked for all of those things. They are there. If, however, anyone is interested in daily lesson plans, etc., that you won't find, because for the sake of differentiating for our children, you won't find daily lesson plans, but you can go on to the site. You should, if you have children, you will have a password. So you can go in, just as Ms. Jones said, you can see what the lessons are. You can use Schoology. You should get their scores, their grades, etc. That should be entered as well, because that's part and parcel to how the grade is accrued.
Thank you, Ms.
And so it is out there.
And
But I'm not on the board, but
there are multiple questions from members. That's it. There are multiple questions from members about the current process that is available. Oh, you're good. You're good. Multiple questions from members about the process for folks to access this. Stand by. I will work on getting the answers to those folks who have asked specific questions related to the current process. The subcommittee will take up the bill.
Mr. Chair.
We're past 11 o'clock. So the bill sponsor is still here. Go ahead, Delegate Bodler.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing I would respond to, and that is in reference to that there was no response from the Board of Education or from the superintendent. I had a bill years ago that dealt with the Department of
the bill that we have in front of us today, though, Delegate Bodler.
No, but it's important because I had a bill and the department came to me and we worked it out, and actually it was very similar in that it was an internet issue. And the department, came, we sat down, we talked about it, and they went ahead and instituted what I wanted to do in a bill. So these bills are important sometimes, but like I say, I received no response. This bill was out there. I heard nothing from the superintendent's office, nothing from the board at all in response to this bill. And I'm more than willing to work with them. If we can do this without passing a bill, I'm in favor of that. But right now, I think this is going to be our option.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing the bill. Thank you for the testimony and the spirited debates. It's past 11 o'clock. I'm going to hold the voting until possibly later or earlier next week before the next meeting. So stand by for inboxes for that. Thank you, everybody, for the time. That I know folks have other meetings they have to attend. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, Mr. Chair.
Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
We're running out the clock.